Welcome to today's webinar with Carlos Agostini. Carlos, thank you so much for joining. Maybe let's start with just hearing a bit more about your background.
Nice. So, hello, Thomas. Hello, everybody. I'm very glad to be here. I'm thrilled to be part of this webinar today. Even before just introduce myself, I just wanted to say thank you for the time and for the space. Carlos Trujillo Agostini here, very South American name. I'm from Venezuela. I have been working in marketing the last 6-7 years of my life. I formerly studied marketing. Then suddenly I just moved to statistics, machine learning, and everything around data science. And now that gives me a chance to move from Venezuela to Chile, work with a lot of companies there, like most retailers companies, biggest retailers companies. And now I'm working at Bolt in Estonia, basically part of the marketing analytics functional teams, where we basically try to uncover the mysteries around marketing spending. So I'm one of those guys that is, it's all the time trying to solve the question about where is my money and where I should be spending more money. And I will say that part of this webinar will be try to pass the experience of Bolt to all the other analysts that are here.
Very cool. Thanks for the introduction. So I actually heard first about you when you published that very cool blog post about how PyMC marketing was useful at Bolt. And for the listeners, PyMC Marketing is our recent open source library that does Bayesian media mix models, MMMs, and custom lifetime value CLV model estimation. And it's kind of weird whenever you open source a library like we did with PyMC Marketing, you never really know whether people are using the software that you're putting out and whether they're having success with it. Usually you only hear about it if they don't have success with it. So when I saw your blog post, Carlos, I was really excited that not only someone was using our library, but also having good success with it. So I'm curious to hear how that blog post was conceived of and what made you write it up.
Totally. To be honest, I would say that this is one of the wonderful things to be part of about Bolt. I really like to share experience. I have been all the time trying to share like all the things that I learn, all the things that I'm working on, independent where I'm working. And I also did a small blog post talking about experimentation and so on, Medium. And my boss, Paulina, just saw about it. And she's like, this is very nice. We are doing like very interesting things around MMN also in the department. So maybe you want to write something. So she just proposed me the idea. Again, in Bolt is like very wonderful. The people is all the time just pushing you to do new things. And she just pushed me. I just select the topic. We was working with PyMC marketing very recently, and we decided to go for it. And all of a sudden, we are here now.
Amazing, yeah. It's definitely not the most common that companies are that open about what they're working on, and also I guess you sound you have a great manager who also has the foresight to share those experiences. So since putting that out, which I guess has been a couple of weeks now, what has the response been?
I would say that we are very excited about all the things that you can advance with PyMC marketing in that sense. Like you will see, and I will explain a bit in the presentation, that build your model from scratch takes a lot of time and takes a lot of effort. So with PyMC marketing, we just have a very good start baseline to start and build on top of it. And that basically just accelerate our performance, So now we are just taking more rapid decisions around all the things that we have around marketing, if I can say it twice. And if we need something extra, we have all the flexibility to just build on top and continue improving.
Great. Well, then I guess let's not delay the presentation anymore and just hear that afterwards. We'll have a discussion and a Q&A section. So for anyone here on the call, there's a Q&A thing where you can, at whatever time you want, put something in, and then at the end, we'll get to them and they'll be part of the discussion. So Carlos, take it away.
Thank you. So let me share my screen. And please let me know once you're seeing it.
Yep, that's coming.
Nice. Just want to start. Yeah, I have it. So yeah, as I said already, I just want to present a bit of the marketing journey on Bolt around MMN. This is not only about PyMC, it's all the way through our experimentation, our different kind of tactics that we did to arrive to this library. So first of all, to those that don't know or doesn't know anything about Bolt, Bolt is one of the biggest European super apps with presence across 2 companies. We have different verticals. We are in food delivery, we are in car sharing, we are in ride hailing, we are in rentals, not just of cars, also of scooters and so on. And all of these verticals basically are sparse across more than 45 countries and plus 300 cities. So we are a large company in that sense, where we have like huge, I would say, that impact around society. And this is also true because we have 150 million active customers. And I'm sure that if I just show you this number, you will be asking like, okay, but how did you get so many customers? Where these customers are coming from? Because a lot of apps are outside there, and not all of those have so many potential like or customers or active users. And the truth is, we put a lot of effort in attract new users, and those efforts mostly are in marketing activities. So we have online marketing activities that we are just developing every day around all the digital ecosystems, and we can see Facebook, Google, Snapchat, Apple Search, or any other. And at the same time, we have offline marketing activities around, TV, banners, subways, and so on. And as any other company, we have a very regular funnel where we need to expose to a lot of people, catch the attention of those potential customers, get a sign up, and finally an activation. That is the first order or first time right or whatever that basically gives us money. And this is like very standard. I'm sure that a lot of other companies have the same kind of funnel, but us, we just figured it out that if we wanted to grow, we needed to invest a lot in order to show to more people. And as anything involved, we try to invest like in a very frugal way. And what I mean here is that for one hand, we want to spend efficiently. So we want to pay the right amount of money for the users that we want to acquire, but at the same time, we don't want to leave money on the table. So it's not, we don't want to lose that growth potential. So work between these two like ideas is like actually very, very hard. So for us, measurement or a proper measurement is like a must. We cannot be frugal if we don't measurement all the things that we are doing around. And based on that statement where we needed to invest and we needed to do it frugally, we arrived to our journey. That is basically, as many companies in the last, like I would say, 5 years, start with attribution. So in Bolt, for a very long time, we was fans of user level identifiers. So I'm sure that you heard about it, but we was working with analytics, Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager, Pixels, Apps Flyer, MMPs, and so on. Because the idea is amazing. You can just track one person until the moment of conversion and say like, yes, Thomas in Berlin invests, take a ride of X amount of money, and you can just even calculate how much money you will get back and so on. And like the idea is like very nice, but our expectations were never met with attribution. And we have several reasons for that. The first one is that we don't control like this measurement tool. So it's all on hands of Google, Facebook, or anybody else like Apple and so on. And all the rules are all the time changing. So sometimes you have something built, and all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, Google launched a new rule, and you lose all your work, basically. And at the same time, we needed more like cross-channel measurements. And what I mean is, again, we have digital channels, we have offline channels, and we needed to measure both with the same bar. And cookies or user-level identifiers, by the end of the day, are just digital. So outside of digital, they don't work. But most important is that as we was scaling Bolt, we start to know that we needed to measure our uplift, our incremental uplift, and not attribution itself. Because attribution, by the end of the day, even if it works, is just measuring user contact. So not the real impact that you are getting on your target or your business. So we just move forward and we start to explore new alternatives. And the first thing that we just start to find is experimentation, because experimentation may reveal incrementality. So we start to do A/B testing, we start to go around quasi-experimentation, we start to make causal analysis, and we start to find like very good results. And we start to really like this kind of tool. But again, and even actually, we look different ways of do this experimentation. So we take causal inference, for example, and we went to Google, to Meta, to even PyMC, and we start to use all of these GeoLeaf, causal impact, causal pi, to measure our incremental uplift over our time series. And at the same time, if you want, you can just go to Google or Facebook and says like, hey guys, I need A/B testing, and they will just offer you some holdout test or conversion leaf experiment, where you just split users and then control and treatment and start to measure what are the difference between those. And here is again, our expectations were never met. So for one side, experimentation is time-based. So every time that you run an experiment, you are just seeing one specific moment in time. And the second thing is that they are hard to scale and you don't have any independence. And what I mean here is that if you want to make A/B testing for an acquisition funnel, at the beginning, your users are not registered in your platform. So you cannot actually just split them and randomize them and start to make A/B tests. You need to go to some platform, again, like Google and Facebook, and they will do it for you. But even if this is great and it's very helpful, you lose your independence and you cannot maybe just test as much as you want because you depend on other. And we didn't like this. So we said like, experiments are amazing. We can hold experiments, but we need another tool that can help us to measure like the long-term effects. And that's how we move towards media mix modeling. That's how we basically found media mix modeling. And first, if someone here doesn't know about media mix modeling, what we are just saying here is multilinear regression models. So you have a regression model that is trained based on your factors and target, and where you're controlling for some seasonal effects or economic conditions or competitors' actions and so on. And you get like a prediction that you can decompose and understand basically the effect of each of your factors. And we really like it because first, it's just based on statistics, and this is something that we could expect that we will hold over a certain period of time. But even before start to modeling and start to play around about how we can, decompose our target variable, in this case, the one that is creating impact in our business, we need something that it's scalable and it's flexible. Because again, big company, a lot of different countries, a lot of different cities, we need to be able to just switch things, adapt to business necessities, and plug in, plug out, and use it again, and be able to actually not even use it again, be able to transmit the knowledge to like the main management to take like better decisions, not just to analyze fancy things in our computers. So we were to the market and we start to see like the alternative there. And if you go to the market right now, if you go to Google or even, I don't know, Bing, now that ChatGPT is like so popular, if you go to Bing and ask to ChatGPT, he will say you have lightweight MMN, you have roaming MMN, and you have other tools like PyMC. And we said, like, amazing how we can choose between these three options. And in order to choose one, first we needed to understand what are our development needs. So we need, in one side, some tool that is out of the box, so we can start to use things without start from scratch. We need something that at the same time is extensively documented. So we need a lot of documentation. We need a guideline. We hope, and we was expecting a large community, and we was at the same time thinking on Python-based platform. Otherwise, it will be hard for us to scale. because all our infrastructure, cloud infrastructure, is based on Python. And with that, as you can see, we start with Robin, to be honest. We use Robin for a very long time because out of the box, well-documented, huge community. And for a moment we said, like, doesn't matter if this tool is actually just writing in R, we can just somehow make a workaround and start to work with it. We just figured it out. That was very difficult. We moved to Lightweight MMN, again, very out of the box, Python based, so we really like it. Was a bit hard, our learning curve, because the documentation and the community was not as we expect. And on the other side, we just found PyMC, where you have a very good documentation. You have a huge community. It's Python based, but just purely PyMC is not out of the box. So everything that you wanted to do, you will need to build it by yourself. And even though we said, like, we have also business needs, we can maybe check which tools you have the most like pros. And in business, we needed to quantify uncertainty. We needed to be like compatible with our experimentation setup, the ones that I mentioned before, quasi-experimentation and A/B testing. We wanted to have something that consider assumptions around marketing, like diminishing returns and carryover effects. And we at the same time wanted something that can add prior knowledge. So if we cannot even input the prior knowledge that we have around based on our experiments, how actually we can even start to trust in the model. And again, PyMC had, if you build something in PyMC, you can have everything because you're just building it. And other tools have their pros and their cons, but by the end of the day, didn't get all the things that we really want. So we moved with PyMC and we said, even if it's not out of box, we can start from scratch. We can build our models. We can add the effects that we need, and everything will be fine. And we just rapidly figured out that was harder than we expect. So build a model was not an easy task, and add the effects and just put all of that together was as well like very hard. And suddenly we saw that PyMC is releasing PyMC marketing. And this was amazing. For a moment, for us was like, okay, this is our media mix modeling stages. Now we have this baseline code that give us these out of the box functions that we can reuse and start to build on top of it. And that will give us all the information that we need to basically conquer the world. We can have this holistic view around marketing efforts. We can have this we can start to measure this long-term incrementality. We can decompose the effect of the channels. We can do budget allocation. We can optimize our ROI. We was like basically like very, very happy with that founding. And more because, again, out of the box, PyMC marketing have a lot of features. So we have the response curve, we have the distribution of the coefficients or parameters. And these two are for us like the main ones. But even though PyMC marketing have a lot of other features that you can explore and you can see you can try to find how to use it. From our side, we mostly use the first two, but we really invite to everyone that if you find like amazing ways to use all the rest of the PyMC marketing like toolbox, we are thrilled to hear it, and you can actually just comment about it. And with these two main things, we start to say like, okay, we need to solve our problem. That is basically budget allocation. That is basically optimize how much are we spending. And for that, I just wanted to take a second to explain how we address this problem in Bolt. So we have the assumption that our spend and our contribution don't follow a linear relationship. So you spend a lot of money and you get some money back. But as much as you increase your spend, you start to get the less results. And this is happening until you saturate. And even if you spend more, you don't get anything extra. And if you think about it in this way, you basically found a place where you could have several areas in your diminishing return curve. So one area, it's basically where you spend and you get a good amount of contribution in this sense, not paying so much. The other section is where you are actually spending a lot and getting something in return, but maybe you're paying too much. And you have some equilibrium, like more or less in the middle. We call it elbow. That is basically the point where your curve start to be diminishing. So here start to change their direction and start to go flat. And this is basically the point that sometimes we are pursuing, depending on the market, on the conditions, and whatnot, what the other things we need to consider. That's what I mean. And if you go to PyMC marketing, you can actually just see more or less the same picture. So PyMC marketing gives you just straight away the response curve. And the first thing that we do when we get these responses is have a directional insight. So we just modify the code. We add a small extra lines of code of info there. And with this plot, we basically can just deduct which channels are performing better. So if you have channels like the blue one or the green one that are like very like verticals, you can say that you have a quick response on those channels. So you spend not so much money, but you get a lot of contribution back. On the other side, you have flat channels that are more flats, where basically you need to spend a lot of money to get something. And what we want to decide is how to allocate between them. But the problem here is, or our problem was that by default, you don't have any way to actually just set, I want to spend 10K, how much I will have in return. Like by default, we don't have that in PyMC marketing. So you don't have that fit, and without the fit, you will need to just do it by your eyes and your hand and try to match the dots and calculate it, and that's not very efficient, not if you want to grow. So our workaround was, if we don't have it by default, again, this is PyMC, all people, all the persons in our team knows it, why we don't just create a fit. And this fit can be actually just built by any saturation function, or maybe not any, but different saturation functions. We just assume that in our data, Michaelis-Menten, that is the one that we are using, will be the best one. So we just take it, we build the field, the fit, and now that we have the fit, we can start to play around. So you have your dots, you draw your line, you can even project your line to see until what is the maximum amount of money that you can spend until start to get like flat contributions or no contributions at all. And then you're solved. But the reality is that you are not solved, because this curve can be anything. And if you don't corroborate this curve with experimentation, you don't have any kind of way, or at least we don't see any kind of way to validate it. So what we do right now is, once we have this fit and the dots and all the things I already explained, we put a dot of experimentation that usually came from causal impact or, again, A/B testings. And we start to compare how far is our fit, our line, our model against reality. And this is one of the other things why we really like PyMC. So PyMC marketing, because you have the posterior contribution of each of your channels. And once you have a lot of experimentation, you can start to just draw these experiments and see how many experiments are actually matching with the distribution that the model is building for you. So again, this is not by default. We add a few lines of code. If you want, you can just see my code and replicate it. And you have your dictionary with all your experiments. You have your information. You start a loop, and you start to plot each experiment that you have saved on your dictionary. And all of a sudden, you get this. So the same distribution, but now with a lot of vertical lines, each one experiment. And if you have more of these lines inside of your distribution, you can be more confident about it. If you have a lot of those outside of your distribution, maybe you can start to be suspicious. But even, and I'm sure that maybe you're asking, okay, Carlos, you train your model. Imagine that you get a lot of the experiments outside of the distribution that your model is giving to you. Then what else? How do we move? And you can move, because PyMC is like very flexible, and it's Bayesian. So you can add this prior knowledge. You have your business sense that came from experimentation, and you start to input this knowledge into your model. So by the end of the day, you will end with one prior distribution that came from experimentation, and you also have your posterior distribution, and you're going to start to play around. And this is basically how we start to calibrate by the end of the day. So now that we are calibrated, that means that basically we start to move our curve around our two dimensions, in this case, span and contribution. We basically aligned more or less, or as much as we can, the model to reality in order to use it. So all the ingredients are there. You have your well-trained model aligned with reality. This model will tell you what is your maximum possible contribution for each channel. This model at the same time will tell you what are your diminishing returns points, meaning when your curve starts to be flat. And on the other side, you have business constraints or platform constraints. And if any of you have been working with MMN, I'm sure that sometimes you get a model that can recommend spend a lot of money on channel A, but maybe you have a business constraint that is, I don't have so much money for this channel. I have a limit here. Or the platform itself says like, even if you put more money in Facebook, you will not get nothing because you already reached all the audience that you could have here. So basically, models are amazing, are a part of reality, but without these business constraints or this business sense, basically take decisions is actually very tricky. So with BL function, maximization, a function to maximize the contribution of our budget. Basically, we just use minimize from SciPy, and we pass our Michaels-Menten function that for each channel. We define what is the maximum budget allocation that we can have, that it will be our equality constraint. And we have also the budget, the minimum budget for each channel, or the range that each channels should be moving. That will be our inequality constraint. And then, SciPy do everything for you, iterate, and give you the best allocation to maximize profit or any target variable. And what we are seeing is that in reality, every time that we calibrate better our model, we get improve in budget allocation. And what I mean by improve is you start to get more reproducible results. So your model, you train your PyMC marketing model. This model will tell you that the contribution of channel X is, I don't know, €1 back for each euro that you spend. I might say whatever. And once you test it, you actually see that result. So you're gonna start to, again, have more trust and move forward. And by the end of the day, if you like it, you just save your model. It's like very easy with PyMC marketing, and you can reuse it in the future. And actually, we start to save models even before PyMC marketing released the save function. So now if you want to save a model, you can actually just do it like very easy. So you don't need all of these lines of code. It's actually one line of code now. So PyMC guys are moving like super, super fast, and that's very amazing. And by the end of the day, that if we achieve our goal, the things that I was mentioning before, I will say that we are on track. Every day we are making like our spending more efficient, and we have a way to prove it. We have experimentation that is complementing MMN model, and the model is actually giving us results that we can reproduce. So we are sure that, more or less sure, that we are spending the right amount of money. Also, we have a very healthy growth. So every time that we want to scale, we can first check the potential of the channel, check what will be the performance, more or less projected, and then move forward if we believe that makes sense. And if we are just controlling those, that also means that we are not leaving growth potential on the table, and we are paying a fair amount of money for the users that we will get back. And for us, all of this was, I will say, a hard time. We spent quite a time doing all of this that I'm presenting. I hope that for you guys or for someone here makes sense. And for that reason, we just build a PR where we put all of this knowledge about like budget allocation, and we just trying to contribute, because why not make this easier for other people? And at the same time, we just need to say that big kudos to PyMC Labs, because without this tool, everything will be actually harder. So they did a very great job. It's amazing to see these open source software companies also moving to all the areas of consultancy and so on. And we really just need to say thank you, because it's a great tool that now is open and everyone can use, and we can start to scale our marketing analytics. So quick recap. We will recommend that don't pursue attribution. So attribution can say whatever, but you need to seek incrementality. At the same time, don't invest on tools that maybe you could not scale. We spend quite a lot of time trying things that by the end of the day we just left, and will be maybe better just spend that time on develop a tool that we could actually just scale. Experiment as much as you can. Experiment, scale, reveal, incrementality. So do them and use them to calibrate your model, and calibrate this model as well with business sense, with priors. And finally, if you have all of that, just take actions. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense to do all of this modeling and put all of this effort. So this was me. Again, I really like to share content all the time. So if you want to just follow me on any of the social medias, or just write me an email, we can take a coffee and discuss. And again, if you have challenge about any idea, expose it here. I will love to hear it. And our team is also open to talk. So Paulina is there. You can just reach her. She's an amazing scientist. Anton as well is one of the best statisticians that we have in the team. So go to them and talk about whatever you want. And we are hiring. So if you want to be part of Bolt and have a lot of fun with us on this journey, please go to bolt.eu careers, and you could actually apply for anything in our company. So really, thanks everybody. I hope that you enjoyed. I'm thrilled to hear your thoughts.
Very cool. Thank you so much, Carlos. Yes, there's quite a few questions. So actually, one thing that occurred to me, which maybe not everyone knows, that as of this recording, Bolt is not a customer of PyMC Labs, right? So, of course, PyMC Labs, we help companies with building marketing mix models, or in general, any type of Bayesian model that can help data science problems. And but yeah, so basically we saw that many of the people that were reaching out to us were building their own MMM model in PyMC, and that's why we released the library to not have everyone reinvent the wheel. So yeah, that's I guess is an interesting scenario to put that out and have someone who is not directly associated with labs, but just talk about the experience. So that's why I thought it was really interesting to hear from Carlos.
Yeah, just pure PyMC fans.
Say again?
Just a PyMC fan.
All right, exactly. So getting to some audience questions, Vlad asks, will it be possible to get slides for the presentation?
Yes, for sure.
Cool. So yeah, you can share that with us, and then we will upload this to YouTube and also to Meetup, and then you will once the recording is out, we'll also share the PDF slides, so that way everyone can get them. Usual, apologies, that is the incorrect pronunciation, asks, could you explain more how SLSQP optimization works, if possible?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, LSLQP is just a maximization function. Again, you have it in SciPy. So we really like this tool because, again, manage inequality and non-inequality constraints. So sometimes you have this function where you need to, total budget to be just equal to your proposed budget. And other times you have just budget should be in a range of whatever and whatever. And in that sense, SciPy do it like very well with minimize. I would say that this is why we are using it. You can still use another kind of linear programming as well, like allocations, if you want to, allocate like linearly. But the other reason why we're using this from SciPy is because we can ingest our curve fit. So we basically do this, again, Michaels-Menten fit, we pass it to minimize, and minimize take this curve to allocate. So it's not linear and give you this chance of inequality and equality constraints. That will be my answer.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think in SciPy is the only optimizer that allows setting of these constraints and bounds. And it is a pretty good optimizer. In the past, we've also used CVX-Pi, which is only for convex optimization problems. So when you know that the problem is convex, then that is usually a lot faster. But sometimes, like probably this optimization problem is so fast to solve that you don't really need that. But sometimes, yeah, if you want to look for something that really squeezes out everything, and especially when you take into account the whole uncertainty of the posterior optimization, it becomes much more meaty, and then that is one option.
Yeah, totally. And this is one of the other things I really like it. If you go to the PR that I was mentioning before, you will also see that we pass some kind of, I don't want to say like interval, but interval to the function that we have, the Michaels-Menten, because we assume that this is not the whole truth. So if actually by the end of the day he can, the function returns spend less money than expected, then we say like, amazing, we can do it and we can follow that rule.
Yeah. So then another optimization question from Andres: why not add business constraints as optimization constraints? Which problem did you encounter?
Yeah, that's again, in the PR is like very general, I would say. We definitely add business and platform constraints I was mentioning. But at the same time, usually those constraints are, when you make it tangible, are just ranges. So imagine you have Facebook, the case where model says you can scale up to infinity, but in Facebook, you see that you cannot spend more than X amount of money. So if you just take that platform constraint and pass it to the model, you will put in your boundaries, in your max upper level, you will put the maximum amount of money that Facebook can allow you to spend. Same for Google, or same for any channel. And business constraints are the same time are very similar. So budget is a business constraint. We don't have more than X amount of money. And basically when you pass your budget, your expected budget, this is more or less your constraint. I'm not sure if we have another kind of constraint there, but I would love to hear if you have something to say around it.
Yeah, I mean, I think in principle, there's definitely nothing stopping you. And I think the optimization is supposed to be something flexible, that whatever the constraints you think you need, just put them in. And I think the API will allow for some flexibility around that Carlos currently has in his PR. Here's a question from Michael. Another option than any of these open source tools that many companies choose is to either send data to an agency or use a SaaS-based tool. Is there any reason you didn't go with these options?
Sorry, can you repeat the question, Thomas?
Yeah. So instead of using an open source tool, what a lot of companies are doing is they send the data to an agency and they do the analyses and then maybe return the plots. Yet another option is to use SaaS-based tools where you upload your data, right, and then it like fits the models and gives you all the reports. So any reason you didn't go with either of those two options and build something in-house essentially?
Yes, totally. We tried once. We actually did some tests. I don't want to say the company. I'm not sure if I can say the company. We did some tests with external companies, with some of these media companies. And again, takes a while. So we have, again, 300 cities. So we need to move very fast. And if you just send the data, wait for them, just get the data back, then you process it, it takes a long time. It's hard to scale. And at the same time, you need as well some transparency, right? So we really like to be able to go to the model, and once the model says something, we can just go deep and understand why this response is happening. So we have all the transparency to analyze why our outcome is happening. And in that sense, maybe that transparency, you don't have it, or at least you could have it, depends, but it's not so easy.
And I guess in addition, when you find something that you actually think is problematic, you can even just change it, right? As you have done with optimization, you're like, oh, this is cool, but or like that other function that you implemented. So it not only gives you that transparency to find any potential problems or understand them, but also then do something about them.
Yeah, totally. I just want to highlight, to put an example, the workaround that we did around Michaelis Menten was exactly that. So we had some stopper, we needed to fix it, and we did it.
Yeah. One other reason that we hear from a lot of our customers that want to build in-house solutions is also just to keep that expertise in-house, right? Like by now, many companies, especially tech companies or advanced consumer product companies, have really strong data scientists. So why really have someone else do that and build up that insight and expertise somewhere else rather than cultivate it inside the company?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's true, but I will say that my degree is not in data science. I think that even Anton's or other guys are not in data science per se or whatever. But it's definitely better when you have the energy in-house to build things and dig and research and investigate. That's basically our job right now. So if I need to also define what the things that we are doing, is just researching the best ways to solve problems, like business problems.
Yeah, that makes sense. Another comparison question. I was wondering, what have been your experiences with Robin and lightweight MMM, and was there anything that you think PyMC marketing was better suited for?
We definitely, the thing that we really like the most is the uncertainty management. To put one example, like in Robin, the core of Robin is just a rich regression. So you have these point-based estimations, and I mean, fine, we don't have any problem with that. It's actually quite good. You have a lot of those because they give you different like model parameterizations. They have a huge like parameter optimization function behind. But in the end of the day, you just need to choose one. And with this Bayesian framework and the posterior, you have actually the chance to play around it and maybe say like, I don't want to believe to the mean. That is, example, by default, the response curve are just taking like the mean of your contributions and use it to sample the response contributions. But if you believe more to other section of your curve and you just want to play there, you can actually do it with some degree of belief, I will say it. And that freedom is the one that we like it. And is the one that is, I would say, Bayesian, right? Like we can actually just play around with this information.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question, how easy do you find it to build on top of PyMC marketing? Since the package is new, there were some breaking changes so far.
Yes. This is, I mean, I like it. Sometimes I don't like it. I need to be honest. PyMC Labs moves very fast. So the other day you guys released this change of the in the feed of the model. So basically now you need to pass also X and Y Greek in the feed section. So we was building already like a process, and then this switch, and we needed to start to switch it again. So it's more or less, you need to be very attentive. But at the same time, all the changes that are happening have a lot of good things behind. So right now we found that it's like very easy if you have the expertise. I mean, I have been working with PyMC at least 4 or 5 years. Other members of my team have like the same 4 or 5 years as well. We're working with PyMC marketing or Python. So once you have the expertise, build on top is like very easy. That's why we don't take options like Robin, because even though all the members of the team can write code on R, it's not our day-to-day tool. So if we wanted to just move faster, will be hard. And if Carlos dies tomorrow and anyone's know about R, then who takes the model? So this is basically why we're doing a PyMC, and this is basically why we like it. Definitely, I would say that it's early stage. I'm not sure, Thomas, if you agree. So every time our changes are happening, but you can easily adapt to those changes. We don't have like any problem in the adaptation.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that assessment that PyMC marketing is still a young library, and I would definitely say in terms of the stability and the statistics that it's ready for production usage, but we do retain the right to still make breaking changes to the API just in order to not be too held back to be able to innovate. And that particular innovation, I mean, we always try and avoid API breakage, but in this case, I think it was worth it because that particular change was related to making the API scikit-learn compatible. So there's like a fit and a save and a load. So that all goes towards trying to improve the workflow for making PyMC marketing and in general PyMC models more easily deployable. So there's a lot of work already how to deploy scikit-learn models, so that way can hook into that machinery. And also, Carlos mentioned like to save this model with Pickle, but there's now also something that Michael Raczynski has worked a lot on that allows you to save and load models with like proper API. So yeah, it's always driven by innovations.
Yes, no, totally. And I think that all of these innovations are like the good part of PyMC. If I can be maybe a bit biased, but to give you another example, also you have this release around the response curve with the lagging effects, with the carryover effects, sorry, that Juan was working on that. And now that we have, for example, the immediate response curve and the ones that are also lagging, you can also start to measure how much is your lagging effect is contributing over time, because you have both. So every step I will say that give you more knowledge, and that's the thing that you should be pursuing, like get more about your data.
Yeah. Actually, I think there was a question related to what you just said. Oh yeah. What data, Joe asks, what data is necessary at a minimum? What if there's a lag between marketing campaigns, the dependent variable? What are examples of modeling competitive dynamics? Can you incorporate users where you can do direct attribution? And have you attempted to link MMM to LTV? So that's a lot of questions. Let's just start with the first one. What data is necessary at a minimum?
I would say that I don't want to commit myself with any answer, but if I need to say something, I will expect that you have at least seasonals controls. So you're controlling for the seasonal effects of your target variable. As well, you have at least two factors, otherwise doesn't make any sense. Just being able for one specific factor. I would say that based even in regressions, that factor will attribute all the variability by the end of the day. And it's like, I mean, I don't see problem, but maybe it's strange. So at least two factors and seasonality components to control. Then you're gonna start to get competitive components. You're gonna start to get weather components, city components, and move forward.
So maybe 2 years is a good starting point.
Oh yeah, in terms of length, yes, I would say that totally yes.
What if there's a lag between marketing campaigns and the dependent variable?
We have been trying also to control with this lag effect between the marketing campaign and the variable, but honestly, again, this also depends on your business vertical. In Bolt, more or less of our impact happens like very quickly, but I mean, I don't see a problem if you just start at the lag of your variable of your target, as in any other regression, to try to control it and take that outer regression in consideration.
Have you attempted to link MMM to LTV?
Yes, we more or less have a linked, not totally linked. We have some LTV models that happen outside of PyMC. So once we get the response of MMN, that could be, you get 200 extra users for each euro that you spend, and so on. We just multiply that for our average LTV, and doing that, we start to calculate like profitability if we need.
Yeah, and there's also something that we've been doing some research on at PyMC Labs to link those two together, because PyMC Marketing also has LTV models, and that I think is really important to link them together, because if you don't assume that all users are created equal, well, then you don't want to spend money on channels that give you users that are actually not that valuable. So there's a lot of value gained, but I actually don't think many people are successfully doing that. So I think it's pretty state of the art.
Yeah. No, totally. And again, we are just doing this in a very simple way. So amount contribute to that channel multiplied by the LTV that we have calculated with other models, and we just start to manually attach it. It's good extrapolation by now. We definitely want to move to some robust alternative.
Derek asks, any advice on how to present this project to business stakeholders? Did you find misconceptions about how MMM works with a non-data team?
Yeah, could be, but I will say that that's why we love response curve. I will say that response curve are very understandable for stakeholders. So any manager could understand that, okay, we are spending more money and we're getting this amount of X target back. And as soon as we move in our curve to the X axis, this will be decreasing. So it's very easy to explain, and we have seen a huge reception, a good reception with our main stakeholders.
That's cool. Also, I'm curious, how do you present these results? As like a presentation? Do you have built a dashboard on top of this?
Yeah, we are still not in the dashboard phase, but we basically just take, once we have the information, we generate the data frame of contributions that you can also have in PyMC, and we just try to push that to database. Then database, we just generate a table, and we just move with the tables. By now, Excels and tables. But ideally, that will end on a dashboard that everyone can see once the model is in production and everything is working like perfectly.
Right. Yeah, I guess Excel still makes the world go round.
Yeah.
But on the note on dashboard, so actually, internally at PyMC Labs, we have started to develop a dashboard for PyMC Marketing. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely get in touch with us. We haven't announced it yet, but excited to shop it around.
Yeah, I actually need 1 sec. My laptop have 1%, and I think that will die.
All right.
Seconds.
Yeah, I'll let you get some. So I will handle some questions in the meantime. Vlad asked, is there a minimum time frame that 329, that pull request that adds optimization capabilities, will be merged? So that pull request has been up for a while and has received quite some review and iteration, but I think it's nearing the finish line. At least that's my sense. I'll let Carlos comment when he's back. But oh yeah, he's back. Yeah. Assuming we also get our act together, do you think it's going to be merged soon?
Sorry, can you repeat? I heard that you were talking about the pull request.
Right. Yeah, the pull request on the optimization. When might we expect that to be merged?
Today I actually get good news from Juan. He did the review. He see that everything's good. We need to improve the doc strings and like documentation wise as well, the notebook, the example notebook, I believe. And once we have that, we will move in experimentation phase. So all of you can start to download PyMC. You will have the function, you can test it, and you can give us feedback. So hope so. 2 weeks maybe.
Yeah, sounds like it's the final stages, and maybe by the time that whoever watches the video on YouTube, that's already out there.
Yep.
Another question: did you make a better experience with a shorter or longer history of data, assuming the channel coefficients are not time varying?
Yes. Honestly, yes. We have more than 2 years of data. We definitely see that when you train the model with like long periods, like 5 years, 6 years perhaps, you have a lot of variability on your coefficients that basically the model right now cannot interpret. So he just gave you this average about contribution. And if you train with long period, you see the decrease on actually like fit. So when you just plot the fit of the model, it's, you know, not quite well. And it's totally normal. You know, like 5 years ago, the relation between one channel and the target will be like very different, could be very different. Now it's a totally different story. So it's expected. But what we are just doing is trying to work with more new data. And based on experiments, we also have the sense of how much this variability is. So we are just trying to apply the influence of experiments to understand how much the coefficient is varying over time. But we are also working on some maybe mixed effects of Gaussian random walks, as Tom is publishing the other day, to see if we do something as well.
Yep, and with HelloFresh, we actually implemented time-varying parameters in their MMM that models all kinds of things, and that improved fit a lot. We have a blog post that I'm gonna share here. And as I said, that makes a big difference and gets around that question of like, how much data should I use? How do I make sure that like estimates are the most recent? And and we also have some code that does that in the PyMC marketing framework. That's not final yet, but it's looking pretty good. So again, if you're interested, please get in touch.
Yeah, I would say that. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that I'm totally agree that maybe with other PyMC developers, that any model right now is controlling by variational coefficients, and that will be a very deal breaker in terms of MMM tools available, because any other tool have it. So if you can build it, I will say that you are in the state of the art, basically.
Right. Yeah. Another question from Joe: do you incorporate data around promo codes at all?
Yes. Yeah, we again in our platform we have discounts and promo codes and anything else, and we need to control of that. Otherwise, we have this usual co-founder problem that we are trying to work around with the do operator of PyMC. So definitely try it out, and definitely we include it.
Yeah, and yeah, thanks for mentioning the do operator. Something that we just recently added to PyMC, PyMC experimental to be precise, is the ability to do more causal analysis, and the do operator is one of them. So I'm also posting that blog post here. And that has a lot of useful tools, applications for marketing, specifically when modeling more of the full funnel, where you have more brand level marketing and performance-based marketing. And obviously the brand one is more upper funnel and builds awareness and interest, and that influences sales, while performance-based marketing has more of a direct impact. So that's something that we're really excited about in building out and working on. Providing prior beta distributions for channels in pure PyMC is simple. How is it with PyMC marketing? Did you need to modify the source code?
At the beginning, no, because you was able absolutely to define the type of distribution that you wanted to use. Right now, if I'm not wrong, with the new release of model config, you cannot modify the half normal distribution. Please correct me. At least I didn't try it. So right now,
I think you can. Well, okay, so I guess I need to check. But it was my understanding that model config allowed exactly that. But
okay.
Even if not, I mean, it's definitely our intention for that to be in there. Maybe like in the current way of changing things around, hasn't quite made the change, but that is functionality that we'll definitely want to make as simple as possible, so that you can just take your own priors when fitting. That's definitely something that is supposed to be there.
Yep.
So we're at time, but we still have a few questions. Are you okay for a couple of more minutes?
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
Great. Ad stock and saturation effects might not be meaningful for each channel. Can you turn them off if needed in PyMC marketing?
As far as I know, I didn't try it again. We never take off. But what you can see is that if they are not meaningful, then basically your response curve in this case looks more like linear. So you don't have this saturation happening. You see just a line, and that can actually happen.
Fernando asks, what do you mean for model calibration to have more business sense / meaning?
Yes, what I mean by calibration is, again, you need to input your experiments or your prior knowledge into the model in order to more or less convince the model to move to reality. Models, by the end of the day, are just a view of reality that are trying to explain with a few factors and a few control variables all of your variability in your target. So they tend to be quite optimistic per se. So without this control, with this experimentation that you can input into the model to say that, my effect is around this and this, you will always have a biased-like view.
When you reference experiments, can you give a general example of what that looks like?
When I reference experiments,
well, I guess when you talked about running experiments, what do you mean by experiment? Are these A/B tests, lift tests?
Yes. Yeah. Again, one side, it's A/B testing. So we run a lot of those with Google, Facebook in our internal platform, where we just create a group of people, we separate in control and treatment, we randomize them. We are sure that the things that we are doing to impact the treatment are not happening in control, and we get some uplift. So usually that uplift, it's compared again spent, so that can fit quite well in your model. So you said, like, if right now the estimation of my parameter is one response for each euro that I use, you can maybe say, like, I'm actually more or less sure that it's 1.2 and not actually 1. And that's one way. The other way, when you don't have, and this is happening a lot in marketing, you cannot split because maybe the user is not registered yet in your platform. So we do quasi-experimentation. Causal pi is a good example of that. So you have interrupted variables, you have like, you can use counterfactuals, like in, not interrupted, synthetic control, like time series. So you hear just synthetic control and you compare against reality, and the difference that you get from that, it's basically the uplift. And again, you have a spend, you have the uplift, you just match how much this X euro contribute on this uplift, and then you can start to match it with your experiment. Hope that makes sense.
And I just got word that in CLVs, you can specify your own prior distributions, not yet in MMM, but the reason is technical, so it's something that we'll fix. What are examples of modeling competitive dynamics?
Good question. Right now, we don't have a specific modeling of competitive dynamics. So I would like actually just hear what are your thoughts, because we are not quite there yet.
So that's something we actually briefly discussed in that blog post we put out on causal analysis with the do operator, and relates to what I was talking about before with the full funnel analysis, where so there's a plot there with all these different boxes and arrows, and one of them is the brand marketing spend, and then there's also the competition. So both of those increase awareness for the overall products in that segment that you're selling. So all of that helps build awareness, and you can include them in a more rich causal structure. And if you also in that is included, for example, prices, which I think is often, and I'm curious what your thoughts are, but that's something that we find is often neglected. Like, there's people definitely interested in modeling price dynamics and price elasticity, but I mean, obviously that will have an impact on sales and should be included in the MMM, but we see that rarely being done. What are your thoughts on this?
Yes, I mean, we have been trying to model this. We call it cross-pollination effects. Basically, all the things affects others, but in reality, we don't have any first practical way to maybe see it from an MMM perspective, and second, it's sometimes you ask one variable and that variable absorbs all your variability. And then you're like, okay, should I proceed? So you start to try to add priors and everything, but even though the final model is not what you're expecting. So we are not quite there yet. Definitely something that we want to explore again.
Great. Well, if that all, I hope that was helpful for everyone here. If you still are confused and think there's like so many things out there and tools and combine at PyMC Labs, we were very happy to help you navigate that jungle and build the best solution consisting out of using the open source technologies that we've talked about. So please get in touch if you want to. Of course, everything that Carlos talked about here is open source, and you can also use it on your own account, as Carlos and his team have been doing. So with that, thank you all for joining and for the many, many questions. That was really such a lively discussion, and especially thanks to you, Carlos, for the presentation, but also being generous with your time and answering patiently all of our questions.
Totally. I'm very grateful with you, Thomas, and all PyMC team. You did an amazing job, and we are really happy to contribute with this open source solution. So
fantastic. Yeah, it's very much appreciated.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.